Words of our speaker. Here's Johnny.
I do want to recognize one person. That's a colleague of ours from the legislature. I think there's D. Richard. When I give speeches away from Baton Rouge, I always tell folks, look, Louisianians believe in justice, but every now and then we send an innocent man to the legislature. And D. Richard is one of those innocent, good people, and I want to thank him for his service. Some folks think that most of our budget is comprised of federal money. That's not accurate. This year and next year, we'll receive about $10 billion of federal money out of a $25 billion budget. That's about 40%. My point, though, is that over the last 10-year period, we've gone from a $16.5 billion budget to a $25 billion budget, excluding all the hurricane money, which you have to do because it skews the numbers. That's a 52% increase. And inflation has been well under 2%. Current inflation rates are well under 1.5%, some think under 1%. We have more money today at $25 billion, adjusted for population and adjusted for inflation, than we have ever had since Louisiana became a state in 1812. So how come we're broke? And the short answer is simply this. It's how we're spending the money that we do have. I don't think any reasonable person looking at the numbers can argue that we don't have enough money. Say it again. We've got more money today than we've ever had. I think our problem, in my judgment, is how we're spending the money. And the problem for the last 7 years has been we've spent more money than we took in every single year. The budget has been balanced on paper, but it hasn't been truly balanced. Now, why is that? For me, I think is the problem. It's twofold. We spend entirely too much money on undeserving people at the top who get bailouts and special treatment. And we spend entirely too much money on too many undeserving people at the bottom who get handouts. When I say undeserving, I don't mean these are bad people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying undeserving not in the pejorative sense, but in the sense that the money we're spending on the people at the top giving bailouts and the people at the bottom getting handouts would be better spent for them and for the greater good on other areas. We've got around 370 special funds set up in the state treasury by the legislature. Set up with a majority vote, by the way. They can be unset up with a majority vote. And there's a myth that most of our money is dedicated in the Constitution. That's not true. That's not accurate. Some of it is. We have a Louisiana Educational Quality Trust Fund. Money's dedicated there. We have a tobacco settlement trust fund called the Millennium Fund. Some of that money is dedicated. But the vast majority of our money, $4.35 billion, is dedicated by statute. And when you look at some of the funds to which we have dedicated money, I mean, here's the list. I'll just read you a couple. The Audubon Golf Trail Development Fund, the Louisiana Economic Development Fund, the Entertainment Promotion and Marketing Fund, another marketing fund, the Beautification Project for New Orleans Neighborhoods, the Vital Records Conversion Fund, the Insurance Fraud Investigation Fund, the Louisiana Auto Theft and Insurance Fraud Prevention Fund, let's see, the Right to Know Fund, the Fraud Detection Fund, the Cameron Parish Tourism Development Fund, the Town of Homer Economic Development Fund, the DeSoto Parish Visitor Enterprise Fund. I'm not going to read all of them, but those are illustrative. I'm not saying that all of this money should be undedicated. I'm not saying that. Some of these dedications are dedications of self-generated revenue. A good example is the Boll Weevil Ratification Fund. Our farmers have gotten together, they tax themselves, they give the money to the state in return for a service. I would undedicate those funds. But not all those funds are like that. And it seems to me that if we're trying to figure out a way how to deliver vital services to the people of Louisiana, we have to start with looking at this $4.35 billion worth of statutory dedications. But the truth of the matter is that the statutory dedications are half as big as the general fund. And they're sitting there fully dedicated. We're not going to get control of the spending problem of Louisiana until we face some of our dedications. But one thing he has not looked at is our staffing levels. The legislative auditor did a report 2 years ago, found that 22% of all the managers in the classified service manage one employee. He found that the average span of control, the average manager in the classified service manages 4 employees. You would never see businesses in the real world staffed at those levels. The fact of the matter is that the numbers demonstrate we've got way too many generals and not nearly enough foot soldiers. We're not going to be able to right-size this budget until we address that expenditure, because labor is always the largest cost for any institution. I want to give you a couple more examples. And I'm not going to belabor this because I've talked to you about it before. Contracts. The legislative auditor, I didn't know he was going to do it, but Monday, a week ago, he issued a report on consulting contracts. He found that we have 14,000 consulting contracts. He also found that we have 4,600 consulting contracts worth $250 million that are off the books. If you go over to the Office of Contractual Review and say, let me see the contracts, they're not going to show you 4,600 of them. You can't manage what you can't measure. You've heard me talk about these contracts before. We've got 2 bills in the legislature to try to address that problem. House Bill 30 by Representative Breichard, House Bill 376 by Lance Harris. We've got consulting contracts. I kid you not, I'll show you later the numbers and the actual contracts. We've got consulting contracts with the University of Tennessee, the University of Georgia, Texas Tech University, Texas A&M University, University of Arkansas, Rutgers State University, Oregon State University, Vanderbilt University, Duke University, University of Southern Mississippi, at a time when our universities are being fiscally waterproofed. There's something wrong with this picture. Now, the administration came in front of our committee when we were hearing House Bill 30 the other day and said we only have about 150. Let me read you from the fiscal note from last year's equivalent of House Bill 30. This is from the Legislative Fiscal Office. In the fiscal year 2013 alone, just 1 year, the Office of Contractual Review annual report states that OCR approved a total of 2,001 professional, personal, and consulting services contracts with a total contract value of approximately $3.1 billion. That's just 1 year. If you check this budget, you will find that next year we're going to spend $47 million alone on consultants for coastal restoration. I am all for coastal restoration. But these consultants are not going to plant a blade of swamp grass. They're just going to study a problem that we know we already have. That $47 million, check my numbers if you don't believe me. That $47 million that we will spend on those out-of-state consultants to tell us we have a problem is more money than the entire general fund contribution next year to LSU in Shreveport, to Southern University in Shreveport, to McNeese State University, and to Nicholls State University put together. Where are our priorities? And it's more than a law, it's a moral principle, it's a good one. It says that if we as Americans believe that if our neighbors are too poor to be sick, we don't let them die. Some countries do. You can't afford a doctor in some countries? Too bad. We don't do it that way. That separates us from a lot of societies, and I am very, very proud of that. But that comes with a cost, a big cost. We are spending $8.3 billion a year on our Medicaid program. Do about it. Last year, according to Public Affairs Research Council, we had 900,000 visits to emergency rooms for routine care. Now, what does that mean? That means that our program, perfectly legal, pays for people to take a $700 ambulance ride. Strike that. Medicaid pays for our Medicaid taxpayers pay for people to take a $700 ambulance ride to an emergency room to be treated for acne, to get a pregnancy test, to get obesity counseling, to have their eyes examined for glasses, for diaper rash, for infertility, to discuss infertility treatment. We will pay for those things under Medicaid. Perfectly legal. Some might argue otherwise, but under the law it's perfectly appropriate. But not in an emergency room. It costs 5 times more to treat a patient, to give a patient a pregnancy test in an ER than it does in a private clinic. It's killing us. And you know what we're doing about it at the Department of Health and Hospitals? Nothing. Zero. Nada. It's why our Medicaid spending, one of the reasons, is up 41% under this administration. Other states are doing something about it. Go over to Houston's Memorial Hermann Hospital. They've got what's called a patient navigator program there. They establish paraprofessionals at the entrance to every emergency room. When somebody shows up and wants to get a pregnancy test, they're told, look, we'll get you that pregnancy test. We'll get you an appointment. But you can't come here to the ER. This is for really, really, really sick people. And the law does not require it. That's another myth. The law, neither federal nor state law says that you have to treat somebody in an ER for an obvious non-emergency if they're not willing to pay for it. New Mexico put in a program in 2006 called the Nurse Advice. It's basically a call center to nurses 24 hours a day. Something like 70% of the people of New Mexico has about 2 million people are registered. You get sick in the middle of the night, or your acne flares up, or you want advice about removing a growth on your arm, or you want to talk to somebody about how to lose weight. You don't have to go to an emergency room. You just call the nurse hotline. They'll get you an appointment with a private clinic. We can save tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars by doing what other states are already doing. We're doing nothing. 3% of all the people on Medicaid, 3% of that 1.4 million people on Medicaid spend 43% of the money. That means that 42,000 people people are spending $3.6 billion of the $8.3 billion that we have budgeted. That's $82,000 a person. A lot of it are people who have chronic illnesses. They have kidney disease, they have heart disease, they have diabetes. They get sick. A lot of them don't have a primary care physician. They go right to an emergency room. Other states are doing something about it. Stanford University has developed an extraordinary chronic disease management program. The state of Florida has adopted it. They're saving tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. You know what we're doing? Nothing. Zero. Nada. I used to tell taxpayers, you don't want to know what the best tax is? Pick one or all 4 of them. But make sure that when you do it, you have as broad a base as you possibly can, so everybody pays their fair share. And if you have a broad base, you can lower the rate. so everybody pays less. We have 462 special rules, exemptions to our tax code. About $7.7 billion. What we need to do is go through every single one of those exemptions. Not with a political lens, but with the help of the Legislative Fiscal Office, with the help of the Legislative Auditor, and do a cost-benefit analysis. Why did we create this exemption? Is it working? Is it creating jobs? If it is, double down. Some of these exemptions, we're going to go, man, this is awesome. They're stimulating the economy. But let's give them a bigger break. But the others that aren't working, we've got to ask ourselves, you know, is this an appropriate expenditure of taxpayer money? And the goal ought to be able to broaden your base to lower your rate. But I will tell you, my disappointment in this legislative session has been that all you have heard is money. And let me put it another way. All you've heard is give me more of your money. Taxes, taxes, taxes. Nobody's talking about the spending side. Nobody's talking about the statutory dedications. Nobody's talking about how we can save money in Medicaid. Nobody is talking about how we can save money through our contracts. I don't think we have a revenue problem. I think if you look at the numbers, it's clear we don't. What we've got is a spending problem. It is a spending problem. It's how we're spending the money that we do have. And I don't care how high you raise revenue, as long as you persist in spending more than you take in, which is what we have done each year for the past 7 years. And as long as you persist in spending it, more of it on things that you just want, as opposed to things that you need, you're not going to solve this budget crisis. Thanks for having me. We've got some time, so I'll answer. I think the problem right now with the tax code debate is that tax exemptions is sort of a code expression for less raised taxes. I don't think people of this state want more taxes. I think they want spending discipline. But I don't think that's what's going on at the Capitol. What's going on at the Capitol right now is we need money. We need to raise taxes. We're not going to worry about the spending side. That's too much trouble.
Propose the 11 revenue-raising bills before finance day after tomorrow?
I think that there's an excellent chance they're unconstitutional. I think Article 7, Section 2 is very clear that you cannot raise an existing tax, you can't levy a new tax, and you can't change the tax exemption without a 2/3 vote. I'm not an expert, but I teach state constitutional law at LSU. And that means I've read the Constitution. And I've gone back, I'll be glad to share you a copy. I've gone back to the 1973 Constitutional Convention records and pulled the debate from the floor where they debated Article 7, Section 2. And it's clear to me that they didn't make an exception for a partial exemption. Now, I understand that the legislature is relying on an old Attorney General's opinion. An AG's opinion is just that, an opinion. I respect them. But if you read the AG's opinion, it's not really even on point.
So should they throw it out and start over again?
If
This is the basis of the...
If they want to do it right, look, this house of cards could come tumbling down. If somebody files suit and challenges this and wins, we will have to do it over. Now, remember Bayou Health? Still there, managed care, great in concept. We've got about 900,000 of our people on Bayou Health. We spent about $2.8 billion of your money on Bayou Health. Is it working? We don't know. You know why? Because DHH will not let the legislative auditor audit them. Darrell goes in and says, I want to audit Bayou Health to see, whether we're saving money and see quality of care. And they say, sure. Here are the numbers put together by the insurance companies. And Darrell says, no. That's not how an audit works. I get to go and look at the books myself. And DHH says, bye, you have to leave. You know what our legislature's done about it? Nothing. Nothing. How can we possibly look taxpayers in the eye and say, we're out of money, let's just talk about taxes? I'm telling you, there's money to be saved.
So do you think
You don't have to have a constitutional convention to get control of your contract spending. I mean, I'll tell you how quickly we could get control of it. And businesses do this every day. Here's how you fix the contracts. This afternoon, the governor sends a memo to all his cabinet secretaries. It says, y'all come by my office today at 3 o'clock. They come by at 3 o'clock. He says, guys, gals, we got a budget problem here. We got a $1.8 billion deficit. I want to save some money. Go cut your consulting contracts by 10%. And do it within the next 10 days. Now, I've been around the state government long enough to know at least one of them is going to say, Governor, I can't do that. I need these consultants. It's impossible. That's the one you fire. and the rest of them are going to do it. And if they can't do it, some of our cabinet secretaries are making $400,000 a year. I'm not, but some of them are. I bet you we can find somebody who can do it. Would it hurt? Maybe. And after you do that, after you cut them by 10%, the governor sends all the remaining consultants a letter and says, I need a 5% discount. And by the way, there is a provision in your contract that says I can get out of it with 30 days written notice. So consider this the start of 30 days in case you don't agree to the 5%. Very true. You're Bobby Jones. You know what? They go groan, and then they go do it. Thank y'all. Other states are doing something about that and saying, no, you can't go to an ER because you have a sunburn. You know what we're doing about it? Nothing. Zero. Nada. If you drill down and look at the numbers, you also find that 3% of all of our Medicaid patients spend 43% of the money. That 3% is spending an average of $82,000 a year. Something's wrong. I know what I do and you do. If you were running the Medicaid program, you find out who those 3% are and see what the problem is. You know what we're doing about it? Nothing. Zero, nada. All the DHH does is go to the legislature and say, gimme, gimme, gimme. Need more, need more, need more. We can save a lot of money in our Medicaid program just by copying what other states are doing. But instead, the response to our problem seems to be, we don't want to do the hard work of spending discipline. We just want you to give us, taxpayers, we just want you to give us more of your money. And I don't think that's going to solve this problem, nor do I think it's right. With a goal of broadening your base so you can lower the tax rate for everybody. That's the right way to make tax policy. That's not what we've been doing at the Capitol. The Capitol has just been throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks, see what can get a majority vote so they can get more money in there. And I understand they're under pressure, but you know what? Nobody put a gun to their heads and made them do what Bobby Jindal told them to do for the last 7 years. This took us 7 years to get to this problem. And the car's in the ditch. We can get it out, but we're not going to get it out by doing the same thing we did in the past.
If people have questions like more information about some of the issues that you've discussed here today, what should they do?
Just go to our website. We've got everything on our website, latreasury.com, latreasury.com. That's the Treasury website, and while you're there, check for unclaimed property. Well, the legislative auditor issued a report today, and I mean, it's pretty breathtaking. You know, he took a look at the 79 tax incentive programs that the state has, where taxpayers are spending money to incent certain groups to expand and grow jobs. And the different agencies, there are 6 of them that are supposed to report every year on how the money was spent and what taxpayers got in return. Of the 79 incentives, only 7 of them were reported on. I mean, there are 6 agencies responsible, only 3 agencies bothered to submit reports. And those that did submit reports only reported on 7 of the 79 incentives. And I think that's outrageous. I mean, I think that's unconscionable. I think the governor ought to fire somebody. That means we got $1.3 billion out there of taxpayer money that's being spent through these agencies that they refuse to report on. And they're breaking the law. And somebody ought to be held accountable.
What about
It just isn't acceptable.
What do you say about this all being taxpayer dollars? What do you say to those taxpayers?
I said to the taxpayers, I'm sorry. You know, as a state official, I'm embarrassed about this. I don't know why these agencies didn't do the reports. But it's $1.3 billion, and people are entitled to know
whether they're getting a return on the investment. And it's up to the legislature, but if I were the legislature, I wouldn't put up with this kind of nonsense. They're down there.
The last meeting, you said that you were going to try to hold a meeting within 10 days. Have you figured
I
out?
have spoken with the chairwoman this morning. She has sent out an email. We're going to have a meeting the week of June 15th. I don't know what day that week. She's trying to coordinate everybody's schedule. As soon as she gives me the day that will be that week, I'm supposed to get a call this afternoon. I'm going to reserve us a room in the Senate. I'm going to send an email out to all the retirees and all the mayors to tell them we're going to be meeting. They're welcome to come, or they can watch us on the internet because we're going to stream it live on the internet. And we're going to take all 20 of these expenditures that have been challenged, the dinners at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and the Easter weekend trips to the Grand Hotel Resort in Point Clear, and we're going to expect staff to go through these expenses one by one and tell us how much was spent, who spent it, who it was spent on, and the reason they had to go spend retiree money to have a $3,000 meal at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And once we get the facts, then we're going to make a decision and let the chips fall where they may. At the same time, our legislative auditor is working as hard as he can to go through them as well. It's going to take him about 8 weeks to get his report in. But I can assure you that the board, and I'm a member of the board, I'm ex officio, I don't vote, but I take this very, very, very seriously. This is not just money that, is out there, fell out of the sky. This money belongs to the taxpayers of Louisiana. It belongs to those retirees in the municipal employees retirement system. This is their money that was spent on what looks like a lot of extravagance, and we're going to get to the bottom of it.
And going back to...
And the reason we're in the trouble that we're in my opinion, it's not because we don't have enough revenue. We've got more money than we've ever had adjusted for people and inflation. It's because we're not spending it right. And the problem with our budget, that $25 billion that we have to spend, we got too many people at the top, undeserving people, getting bailouts and special treatment. And we've got too many undeserving people at the bottom getting handouts. And the rest of us in the middle get the bill. And until we get that straight and change our spending habits, then we're going to continue to lurch from budget crisis to budget crisis and live from paycheck to paycheck.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you.